So why?
You know what? Because I wanted to build a clock. I was been trying to build a clock, and the way that I thought that the lightest, strongest clock that you could build is one clock that is only for every Bitcoin block height. It's got a wallet, a time-locked wallet, and the only thing is, it's based on one key, and you derive a block height wallet for each thing, and one person pours like all the money, pours Bitcoins into all these, and all it was is just check the address. And it's like, ding, the money's stolen. You know that you're at that block height. And then that was the lightest weight way that I could think of. If I could only have one API call to the blockchain and to Bitcoin, and I didn't know if the software was, tainted or not tainted or anything, then if I had this clock set up, I could always know that no matter what device I was using, that I could check my wallets and I couldn't be bullshitted. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, because now I get the whole weight of the Bitcoin network security in my head that, they've stolen that coin. Okay, we're up to that clock. Just like, a moment in time has been stolen from you. Well, that moment has passed. And so I thought that was quite just an interesting way, because machines are going to look at, right now we look at the sun, because the sun's the heaviest energy source locally to us. That's why our clock, like everything is set to whatever's basically the heaviest mass. So like our clocks internally, circadian rhythms and all that stuff, machines will be the same as us, where they'll look at the Bitcoin block height, like the sun in the sky. We look at the sun in the sky like, hey, it's up tomorrow. Hey, it's up now. Great, let's go. Time to start my day. My brain turns on, circadian rhythm, brrr, it all starts. Now, machines, they will look at the Bitcoin block height like, oh, cool, the sun's up again. We have a new block today. Another block has come, because to them, objectively, it's undeniable that that's got the heaviest amount of work going into it, because of all the, brilliant companies that are smashing, like basically sucking all the energy from the grid and, developing the network security. So when you think about that, I think that's kind of cool.
So what are you going to do next?
I want to keep going with stuff like this. I really want to. I think I reckon Bitcoin's going to be the key. Here's the thing. I think Bitcoin's going to be the key ingredient to humanity going like the next level to something like a unified field theory, which is basically where we know how to control every particle in the universe. And that's not that far away. I don't think. I reckon 5 years, 5 to 10 years, I'd say.
What?
Yeah, I reckon so. We're too close. Like, I'll give you an example, right? Like,
I know there's a lot of it's just the quantum world.
Yes, but the quantum world's all like people. It's almost like, look, quantum world is like a 4-dimensional version of pixels, where every pixel on your screen is 2D, right? Like it's 2D. But that every pixel can develop into every state. So if you wanted to put any picture or color there, one pixel's not going to go, I can't make that color. Like it's designed to be able to make every shape and form that can be produced or processed. That's what let's think of the universe is made up of quantum particles, quantum by quantum particle, like instead of, 10 particles by 10, it's 200 billion squillion by 200 billion squillion by 200 billion squillion or whatever. And every particle can take every shape. Now, if we look at the shape of the universe, it's probably more like a multiverse, because it's every possibility that can happen will happen. So it's sort of like if you think of every timeline that you could think of and add those all up, then that's that's what a 4th dimension looks like. It's basically every possibility that you could perceive in your brain. And that's because the only things you can perceive is shit that you can draw from. You can't draw inspiration from anything other than the sensory inputs that you've already taken. And so now it becomes, well, how can ChatGPT write all this shit or be so good and so clever? Oh my God, human consciousness. It's like, no. It's not that if ChatGPT is conscious, it's are you conscious? Because your energy signals, if I took them all together and put them together, I could probably interpret whether this person will like Korn, Follow the Leader, or they won't like that song, or whatever.
Follow the Leader.
Do you remember that?
Do you know why that's so funny? So we talked about the internet earlier.
Yes.
The first thing I searched on the internet was Korn. Yeah, so we got the internet at school, and I went in, and I was on Yahoo, and then I think it was Yahoo search
Korn.
I was at school. No, I searched for Korn, and it came up. It actually predates Follow the Leader, because I think it was Life is Peachy might have come out.
I think Follow the Leader was after Life is Peachy or whatever was. Their first one was really successful, and then the Follow the Leader one was with all the animation, the girl with the bullet. Remember that animated video that showed the trail of the bullet, and it was really cool. And at the time, everyone was like, "Whoa!"
So in my old life, when I had a fanzine, and I started a fanzine as a kid, I interviewed Korn on their first tour of the UK.
Really?
Yeah. So I had a fanzine. I only did four issues.
Yeah.
And the first one was like, I got Skunk and Nancy. They were playing in Bedford. So I interviewed her. She was front cover. It's really shitty. Printed in my local, Tom's dad's estate agents. And then I got Biohazard for issue 2.
Yeah.
Their record company. And then Korn were playing UK. They just released Blind.
Yeah.
They were playing Historia 2. And I phoned up the record company and I interviewed Jonathan Davis and that bassist who thinks he's a rapper. Fieldy.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Jonathan Davis is the main dude, right?
Yeah. So I went up to the Astoria tour and I sat out and they were in their Adidas tracksuits and I sat there sat there with a dictaphone, pre-mobile phone.
Yeah.
Sat there with a dictaphone.
Like Kevin McAllister on Home Alone 2.
Yeah. and I interviewed Korn. That was like that's how life went full circle. Because I did that and then I did all the advertising bullshit and came back and interviewed people.
Hey, how good is that?
It's so funny, man.
That is rad.
So funny.
Yeah, follow the leader.
Yeah, it's a great song, man.
Oh, I mean, I thought that was a whole era for me. I remember that was like kind of
new metal.
Yeah, I was all about it. I loved it. And I really like the animation and stuff.
Do you know that song?
Yeah.
But
I want to know, why is Bitcoin the key to this?
Because it can't break. It doesn't break.
Why is that enough?
Because for something to persist into the future, I've got to make sure that beyond everything else. So here's the reality, right? Whether we know it or we don't know it, we like it or don't like it. The only thing that matters in anything is security. Nothing matters unless you have security, because you can't build on something and you never own something unless you secure it, right? So if security is the most important thing, then we need to make sure that, well, how do we make sure that this thing that whatever message, whatever carrier pigeon we're trying to use, we need to make sure this carrier pigeon is made of steel, indestructible. He's going to fly through mountains. He's going to get shot at. He's going to get all this sort of stuff. So how do we make sure he's really strong? And that's why we put it on there. But it's also, it's also on IPFS as well. And then there's like pointers on other networks. But basically they're sort of fallbacks. But the idea is like it should stay unless Bitcoin breaks. And I can't see anything breaking Bitcoin unless something around prime numbers happens. But even if that happens, Bitcoin's the last thing in the world to break because it's the heaviest and the hardest. So it becomes this kind of weird thing. I don't know,
But you're talking about like almost unlocking the key to the universe.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand how we go from here to there and what role Bitcoin could possibly have in that.
Well, Bitcoin is showing us something that, one, numbers secure a lot more than just numbers, right? They're not just numbers to us because we put so much inference on them. Like, this is my number, like, whatever the number is, the phone number, the passport number, the whatever number, we're a number, we're some number, some prime number. When you secure something, anything, see, look at that lock up there. See that lock on this web page? Mm-hmm. That's an SSL certificate. When a page comes up and goes red, that basically means the prime numbers don't match. So if they had a big sign on it, what it would say is prime number mismatch. Basically. I mean, look, I don't know if I'm spot on that, but it basically means a cryptographic error, which is usually we use cryptography, we use prime numbers for cryptography. Prime numbers, and the reason why Bitcoin, did you say why Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's immutable. So if I could carve it into a rock legally, really gigantically, I would. That's why they make marble statues. That's why they made the pyramids out of stone, because they're designed to be persistent. And like, if you're making something as an artwork, persistence is a huge thing, because if this is a purpose-driven project, and we're not as purpose-driven now as we used to be. Back in the day, like let's say 5,000 years ago, we would look up in the sky and galaxies and everything, because there's no smog, there's none of this stuff. Like, so it's not perfect, but it's not like now. We had a reason to look up and we had a reason to be curious. And all that, imagine how much more we're looking up back then. Now think about how much more intelligent those people are in terms of their consciousness. They understand themselves better than anything, especially better than now, because they have so much less noise trying to tell them who they are. All they've got to do is survive and then be themselves. And so when you think about all these people from back then that have basically everything that's been good has been persistent, and like the pyramids are a great example of that. And they're like a big mathematical sort of flex, in my opinion. Like what the pyramids are sort of saying is, we kind of knew everything already. And that's how it looks to me.
Do you mean because they like face true north and all the.
So when you build something, right? If you're building something with purpose, like let's say I'm an architect and you're the pharaoh, and I'm like, oh. And Pharaoh's like, I need to have the biggest penis in history. And you're like, all right, cool, Pharaoh. Like, hey, get me Mike, the architect. Hey, Pharaoh, what's up? You're like, oh, you were talking this massive project you're talking about? Yeah, what are you thinking? Big statue? No. Dude, massive pyramid. Hear me out. We're going to make it 440 by 280. Massive? Oh, why 440 by 280? I don't know. I'm just pulling my finger out. No, we're getting 20,000 years worth of slave labor right now where every single number that is in this thing has a purpose. Right? If you're doing anything that takes 20 years, you're not going to be like, 287 feet or something. It's going to be, no, this is it. This is why. Because the pharaoh is going to go, why'd you do that number? Boss. Because of this. And he's like, yeah, I don't mind that. All right, cool. I like that. And so they've encoded all this stuff. That's why you look at the size of them. So Nikola Tesla, who it's very well documented that he liked the pyramids. He was like, oh, damn, that's cool. And he was like, everyone's like, why do you like the pyramids? They're a power plant and shit. Yeah, sure, maybe, blah, blah, blah. But the reality was if you do, 440 and 280, but if you divide those together, I think you get 136, 36, 36, 36, and this harmonic resonance basically. And that's what Nikola Tesla was all about. He's like, dude, these numbers are talking to us, guys. And everyone was like, no, you're an idiot. Like, he's like, bro, you're making everything really, really difficult by inventing all these new words. Strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, blah, blah. No one's ever heard of those on anywhere else but Earth. And so if we're actually trying to play ball like a real civilization, like at a universal scale, no one's got English. They don't have byte code and passcode and all whatever these tap knock things are that we send into the universe. They've got numbers. That's why the number line is like the time machine.
Hold on. So you're basically saying numbers are the one common language through everything.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
So if an alien species, let me tell you something.
They will have the same language they have because math is, they will discover math in the same way, but language, the way they communicate, can be entirely different.
Totally arbitrary.
But math will be the same everywhere.
Well, this is the thing. So we invented math again. So what comes down to it? It comes down to just numbers. And so the math becomes addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Everything else, all these exponential numbers, complex numbers, and all this bullshit, it's all real and very real, but it's sort of like very real, relevant to us, and it teaches us stuff.
But hold on, if there are alien civilizations out there,
yep.
We send out signals into space. Yeah. We look, SETI is looking for their signals.
Of course.
For them to be able to send signals out, they will have to have discovered the same math.
Well, they would have to have been using the same technology. So it's like, how could the Egyptians receive microwave technology or radio technology? They didn't have that stuff, right? We can, and we think, oh, that's mad. We're the kings of the universe. No. Everyone has numbers. Numbers is the dick measuring contest for any civilization. And you know what the dick measuring contest is? Pardon the language, but it's basically if aliens come here, they ask one question to our leader and they go, what's the biggest prime number you know? That's the only question they ask because every other technical innovation is on the back of prime number factorization because that's the first thing. It's the most important thing in the world to us as a species.
Why is that?
Because that's the hardest thing. Basically, it's the hardest security policy. And the reason why we have prime numbers for security is because prime numbers are hard to find if you're trying to look for them because they don't have divisors. Divisors are basically, the number 6 is divisible by 3 and 2. That's a divisor. And so how do you find the number 6? Well, if I find the number 3 and I find the number 2, then I've found the number 6, right? Does that make sense? You're finding these wormholes, sort of literally like shortcuts through numbers.
Yeah.
And so if you've got prime numbers, they're hard to find because they're divisible by only one of themselves. So multiplication and divisors, that's almost a hint. When you know that you can't find the next number through all the divisors that you've got, you know that the next number has to be prime because a prime number is something there's no set of divisors beneath it. Let's say I've got the number 7. There's no combination from 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the divisors of those numbers that can find the number 7, basically. Yeah. And so...
All right, let's test you. What's the largest prime number known?
I don't know, but 2 to the 84,000 minus 1.
Not far.
Mersenne is a Mersenne prime.
2 to the 82,500. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was discovered December 2018.
29 million digits.
It has 24,862,048 digits.
Yeah. See, I think what we'll do is we'll look at prime numbers a bit differently. So we look at them like numbers and we're brute forcing them now, like we're Bitcoin mining, brute forcing, right? Just we're smashing them together. And so when we first actually tried to split the atom, right? Because if you think about a prime number, it's something that's divisible by 1 in itself, which means there's no ingredients in it. So what doesn't, like we used to think that we can't split the atom because there's no ingredients to an atom. But we figured out that we went, not literally, but we split it, and then we're
all
like,
this shit fell out.
hey, all this cool stuff fell out. It's like cracking open like an Easter egg or something. And so the way that we split it was we just basically brute forced it. It actually is funny because it almost looks like this mining nonce pattern that we have. But what happens is basically they get all these, I don't even know what they were shooting at, uranium or whatever they do. And they have basically a whole bunch of the candidates that they're trying to split. And they just smother this with just millions of bullets of this stuff, hoping to split them. And so it's quite uncontrolled. Like it's quite unelegant in that regard, but it achieves the outcome. And so I think prime numbers is kind of the same thing where we thought we couldn't split the atom, but I think we'll find a way to sort of split them in a different, like we'll split them per se, which means we can know exactly their ingredients and understand them perfectly. But I think it's going to change a lot.
Prime numbers are infinite.
Is what?
Prime numbers are infinite.
I mean,
that's
they don't
number.
even know that. They say there's infinitely many primes. And then, so one of the biggest things I think, which will be the biggest clues, like the twin prime conjecture, which they kind of say there's infinitely many. A twin prime is something that's, imagine a number in the middle. It's got two numbers hanging off it like a scale.
Yeah.
And they're both primes, basically.
Okay.
So any number is plus or minus 1. Take one step that way, prime. One step that way, prime. And that's the idea is like, is there infinitely many of those, or is there a finite amount? I'm absolutely certain. I feel like,
but there must be infinite because
there's got to be infinite.
Because
many,
there's if there's infinite,
count numbers. Like we can keep processing a higher amount of information. Then, if we can keep processing a higher amount of information, then surely it doesn't just stop at 20 zillion. There's got to be a whole bunch of primes waiting on the other side when we get more computational power. Yeah. So, and I think then it becomes sort of an exercise of, this is going to keep going, guys, unless you figure out why they are there or what they are. Like, so it's like you keep counting them. It's like, hey, we've counted 1 million. It's like, do you know what they are yet?